It's Matt Chapman, and I'm here with the other Matt Kimball from Shell in Singapore. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt. It's great to see you. I think it's been 10 plus years since we've seen each other. And of course, in nowadays with COVID, everything's virtual. So it feels right for us to be virtually connecting. But really privileged to be invited to come along. I've been following these interviews on LinkedIn. I've personally learnt a lot. I think it's more important than ever to be external at the moment. So I'm hoping I can share some insights for the community today. So thanks, Matt. Great to see you.
No, real pleasure to have you on, Matt. And I think it's probably worth talking just before we start about the role that you have with Shell.
Yeah, thanks. So I've worked, I'm fortunate to have had a great career. I've worked with three fantastic companies. Started my career with Accenture in Australia and the US. I then joined Merck, which is literally a good to great company from the Jim Collins book, and worked for them for 12 years in Australia, the US, Singapore and Netherlands, and then got a tap on the shoulder to join Shell in London as the head of HR for their chemicals business. At the time, we had a young family. It was a change of country, change of industry, and a change of company. So we threw everything up in the air, and I've been really fortunate to land at the Shell family, and have had a tremendous 6.5 years with Shell. And more recently, we moved back to Singapore, where I perform a global role. So I'm the head of HR for the Shell's global commercial businesses. We're the #1 lubricants provider in the world. When the aeroplanes were flying, we were fueling an aeroplane every 14 seconds. So it's a brilliant business. We have over 40 blending plants around the world, 800,000 extended workforce, and a sales force in every market. So yeah, a great global role, and one of the few that you can do from Singapore as well. So very fortunate.
Good to hear. So what's this year been like at Shell, and specifically for your business and you?
Yeah, Matt, there's been any plans, any blueprints we had for the year, they were thrown out the window. It's been, I think for me professionally, it's been one of the most exciting years for me. And there's been, I think, three themes for that. One is around how you pivot. The second is how you show resilience through this, through the COVID crisis. And the third is thinking through the opportunities. How can you accelerate out of this from a commercial perspective and also personally? So if I touch on that first one, and I think about how you pivot out of this, when you think about pivoting, you have to have a solid footing. And in the current year that we've been in, if it looks from a societal perspective, that footing has been very slippery as we go through the multiple waves of COVID, shutdowns. From a commercial perspective, the plans get turned on their head. You've got to quickly pivot. And then personally, so this year, Matt, I've been a VP of HR. I've been a homeschool teacher, which I get continual feedback on about how bad I am at. But that's been an element of it. But we've played all these multiple roles. So being able to pivot and change direction has been, I think, one of the most challenging elements of that. But at Shell, if we talk about our North Star, we have such a strong purpose in terms of the role that we're going to play in the energy transition. We're able to get that solid footing and being able to change direction quickly from a commercial perspective. The second element I mentioned then was resilience. And that for me is around showing care. I read a cancer survey recently which spoke about 70% of leaders feel this is the most stressful time in their career. So how do we actually show that care, prepare our leaders to be able to lead themselves, lead their teams, and to also lead the business through this crisis? So that's something we've invested a lot in terms of making sure we've got a psychologically safe environment for our team leaders to be able to put up the hand and say, hey, I'm not okay. Here's where I need help. To be able to have care toolkits to share with the leaders, to be able to lead themselves and their organization. And then for the employees, we've had some really cool innovations, such as a chatbot called Kara, which is a Shell Health, where you can go in and ask any questions. So being able to develop that resilience at an individual level to start to accelerate out of this. And then that acceleration, I think there's a couple of components to it. One is the digital side of this, which is a personal passion of mine. if I look at that commercially, there's lots of things that would have been taboo. So for example, a salesperson, it has to be a face-to-face interaction. That hasn't been possible. So we've seen the acceleration of using technology in the ways that we interact with our customers. In our operations, in our plants, we see the use of smart glasses, technology that's been around before, but typically a leader would go to the plant to do a safety inspection. Now you can use augmented reality to actually go through the plant and to see through the eyes of the operator, which is really cool. So I think that technology, I haven't been surprised that we've all been able to work from home. You and I have done this for a long time, Matt, in terms of working virtually, but it has accelerated it, and it has busted some myths about what can be done virtually and what can be done in the workplace. So they're the three things that I'd point out, Matt. How do you pivot? How do you stay resilient? How do you show the care, a human organization, but then looking to ways to accelerate out of this?
So, Matt, how do you think we will use these learnings to shape the way we'll design teams and organizations and careers in the future?
Yeah, great question, Matt. So I think we've had a project which we've been running for the last 2.5 years called the Opportunity Hub within our business. And that's basically taking the concept of the external gig economy and bringing it internally. So typically our jobs are boxed. This is breaking those boxes and saying, as a manager, I have a project. As an employee, I have an interest in the project, and you can pitch for it. So starting to get an internal gig economy in terms of the way work gets done. And that breaks down the hierarchies, that breaks down traditional structures, which means we're more agile and it's a more speed in terms of the way we can get work done. Examples there, a project in the Netherlands could be a manager in the Netherlands. They find somebody for a social media campaign working for us in Brazil that we didn't know had those skill sets. So I think what's truly exciting is how we can start to accelerate some of that.
So one of the things I'm thinking a lot about at the moment is, I guess, the vibe and, how people stay positive. I mean, we've been through an exhausting year, but how we keep people energized for, what's ahead after such a challenging year. How are you measuring that vibe, and what do we need to be conscious of there?
Yeah, that's good timing, Matt. So we have our annual Shell People Survey that we conduct, which we've got a tremendous amount of back data in terms of what we've looked like historically. That survey is actually going to be published next week, so we'll get a good view of the vibe from the organisation. Importantly, we see from a team leader's perspective, in terms of our top quartile team leaders, that has a tremendous rich amount of data that we can mine to see what trends we're seeing. One of the analytics projects we ran recently was seeing the correlation between our top quartile team leaders and business performance. So we're actually able to quantify, for example, an increase in our top quartile leader performance and what that means from a dollar perspective from sales. So continuing to have that is a foundation for us. The second way we're doing it is, I think a lot of companies are continually tapping in to the vibe and the feel of the organization through using tools such as Menti. It's a standard thing for us to the check-in to see how everyone's feeling. So that's something that we're continually doing. And I think Yammer is also a great tool that we have that leaders can communicate. But what we see, particularly with younger employees coming through, it's the social networks that come up through that. So we've seen some fantastic examples, such as surviving homeschooling as a Yammer thread. So these are from the bottom up rather than top down. And that's a way to get the sense of the vibe of the organization as well.
And you touched on something really fascinating there, which is how in a professional environment, we're really drawing a lot of inspiration and intelligence from how people are actually handling their personal lives. And, I guess you and I have known for so long that, work and life is such an integration, but I really feel as though we're seeing this now, and this consciousness that we have on this is not going to go away.
Yeah, the number one thing I coach leaders on is, when you go into the office and you swipe your card to enter, you're not leaving your home life behind. There's an element of that comes through, and those boundaries have become much more fluid and much more porous, which I actually think is a positive element. So I love Skyping with my team, and you'll see in the background the children, the dog, whatever that may be. And at first, the team would apologize. I'm sorry, the kids are annoying, but mate, I'm intruding on their environment. The work is intruding on the home life. Like, put them on the lap, whatever you need to do to make sure that we're bringing the two together. So I think in some ways and it's something a lot of people are saying, we've been socially distanced, but in some ways I feel more socially connected to a lot of the team that I work with.
It's true. I mean, physical need not mean connection. And, I've seen this as well over the years, that it's about connection, whether it's physical or it's virtual. Matt, thanks very much for your insights. It's really good to connect with you again so long and after so long, and good luck for the journey ahead.
Yeah, great to see you as well. So thanks a lot for the opportunity. Thanks, Matt.